Hey, this is Nathan from Circle Back, and we're going to discuss metal.
This is the Discuss Metal Podcast with Nathan Beaty of Circle Back. Hosted by Dan Terry, presented by discussmetal.com.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Discuss Metal Podcast. My name is Dan. I will be your host for tonight and probably pretty much most nights that we do this podcast. With me tonight is Nathan Beaty of Circleback. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Just got off work, drinking some green tea, so trying to make healthy lifestyle choices, I guess.
That's the way to do it.
But I've been listening to Circleback since, I guess, probably since Terminus came out. I know I'd seen you and John and a few other people post stuff all the time about Circleback, and I just never paid attention until John sat down and did an interview with Brian Patton on As the Story Grows, and I was like, oh, I need to listen to that record, and so I got super into it. And we ended up having John on Brutally Speaking, where we went through like every track and talked about what they all meant and stuff, and so that was cool. But lately I've seen online that you guys are like rocking some new tunes and kind of starting to get everything rolling again with writing new music. So I'm going to get into that later, but I'm going to just start off with asking the general question of how you got into music as a fan and how you got into playing music.
So, prior to being like 11, 12 years old, I was not into music at all. Like, it literally did not matter to me. All I cared about was like sports and video games. And then, I don't know, once I got into middle school, I heard Blink-182 for the first time. And I just fell in love with that band, and I got into like punk rock and stuff. And, I just, started listening to the bands that Blink-182 would talk about on like MTV and stuff. And I just went from there, checking out what guys and other bands were into. And I don't know, got into Linkin Park too. Linkin Park, Korn, Static X, Slipknot, Mudvayne, all of those bands. And then, I was like, what are some other metal bands? And I just kind of went from there.
Gotcha. Where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up? So I'm originally from California, and then I moved to South Carolina, Charleston, when I was 14. I started high school here, which was a huge culture shock.
I bet. I mean, is it true that California, probably a little bit more ahead of the times? Did it kind of seem like you were going back a few years moving?
Absolutely. Like in terms of like culture and just how people think. I mean, I never experienced racism until I moved to South Carolina. Let's put it that way.
Really?
Yeah. Like I didn't even know racism was really a thing that existed until I moved here.
That's funny. You're not the first person I've heard say that too. Cause like, I mean, I live in Missouri, so like we grew up with it,
Yeah.
But, so it wasn't as much, but it's funny because my wife is actually from Louisville, and she was very much the same way. Like when we first met, she like couldn't, like when she would see like racism in action, she was just like completely shocked. Like this is something that people talked about in textbooks, but haven't actually ever seen it.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, and like my dad was in the military, so, I grew up as a military pet. So like, there's people of like all ethnicities in the military, so I grew up, not only did I grow up in California, I'm Filipino, and, California has a large Filipino population. So like, I don't know, like the first like 14 years of my life, I was just around like a lot of people of different ethnicities. And then I moved here, and it was like, okay, the U.S. isn't quite as diverse as I thought it was.
Right. Yeah, it is diverse. It's just getting people to realize that and embrace it. But okay, so you got into music around high school. Well, not high school, more like middle school, I guess.
Middle school. Yeah.
So moved on. So let's see. We went from Blink-182 to stuff like Linkin Park, Static X, Mudvayne. So like new metal type of stuff. You know, whenever you go into new metal and bands like that, was there ever any kind of like transition when you started hearing like harder music? Because like, I mean, something like Mudvayne, like I remember when I first heard LD50, I thought it was like the most extreme record I'd ever heard in my life. I was like,
yeah, same.
oh my God, I can't believe this is so heavy. And then like Slipknot's Iowa, you know, and Wisconsin Death Trip by Static X. Like I thought those were like literally like the heaviest records that could ever be produced by humans. But then you start realizing, you know, as it goes on, that there are far heavier bands. So what was the breakthrough for you as far as going into heavier music?
It's kind of hard to say exactly, but one memory I have is reading an interview with Jonathan Davis from Korn, and he mentioned Cannibal Corpse.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, who is this band? And then I checked them out, and then somehow I got into like Malevolent Creation also, and Suffocation, Morbid Angel, all those like 90s death metal bands I fell in love with.
That's awesome. So like kind of the Florida based death metal bands.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That's cool. I love all that stuff.
More
too.
Sound Studios bands.
Scott Burns. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, and was that so was it like just immediate love for that, or was there any kind of reservation? Because I remember going from like Slipknot to, you know, it's funny that my first death metal band was like a Christian death metal band, so that was kind of a different thing. But you know, I remember just being like, man, this is so like I'm waiting for the singing to come in at some point, and it's just nothing but straight blast and growl.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember hearing like a local radio station in California that played like a random like German death metal band. And I remember being like, oh my God, what is this? It's terrible. And it's like, I mean, I have no idea who that band was. For all I know, it's a band that I like now. But I remember at the time just being like, who would make music like this?
Right. It's always a journey kind of going from kind of the more mainstream stuff into the more extreme. And I always bring that up, and like, maybe it's only cool for me to focus on that. But I've just found that like, it took me such a long time to warm up to it. But I think a lot of the times it just comes down to hearing the right band on the right day, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
time and place.
So, you know, so you're a music fan. I would assume that you just went into that full hog then, just trying to check out everything that you could.
Yeah, it just became an obsession. Like I'm the kind of person who, once I get into something, it's like all I think about, and I want to know everything about it. And that's kind of what happened with music. You know, before that, it was all video games and like sports, baseball, really. Like I wanted to know everything about all of that stuff. And then once I fell in love with music, it was like all my attention just turned to that.
Yeah, same. I still play video games, but yeah, like now, I mean, shoot, I started off as just being a guy that wanted to have more CDs than all my friends. And now it's just basically do same. Podcasts about music like 3 or 4 times a week, you know? But you know, so what's the transition though, between going from somebody that just appreciates music to actually wanting to make it yourself?
So when I was in, I want to say 9th or 10th grade, I had a couple friends who wanted to, I don't know if they wanted to start a band, but they kind of wanted to like play some music, and they wanted to cover a CKY song, which CKY is my favorite band of all time, any genre.
Would not have predicted that. I love that.
Oh, dude. I was going to say, if you ever do, I don't know if you have already, but if you ever do a discography discussion on CKY, you should have me on there.
I will write that down.
I'm like, I literally know like everything about CKY.
I don't know if you know.
I worship that band.
It's so funny because my co-host on Brutally Speaking, John, who's also named Beaty, no relation.
Beaty, he interviewed Darren Miller.
Yeah, he's hard into CKY. So it's something about dudes named Beaty, man. I don't know. and CKY, like it's just meant to be, I guess.
That's awesome. But yeah, so I had a group of friends who wanted to, play CKY songs or whatever, and they suggested that I start playing guitar, which, I had no interest in ever wanting to play an instrument. But I bought a cheap like Fender Squier Strat, and I fell in love with that thing. I haven't stopped playing since.
Was it the pack with the, like, I remember I was taking guitar lessons for a really short period of time when I was younger, and I remember they had like a pack where you could buy the guitar. It was like, I don't know, it was like 200.
Like an amplifier.
Yeah, it was like $200. It's like a little box amp.
Yep, that's exactly what I got.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like the best. I remember, I think I got one of those too. I think mine was a Ibanez.
Oh yeah.
I don't play though anymore. I never could pick it up at a great level.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have, actually, I can still see the amp from where I'm sitting. I have it like it's like a bookshelf now. Sorry, it's not about me. So whenever you were so you fell in love with that thing. What was the first stuff that you learned how to play?
Well, the first song I ever tried playing is "Sink into the Underground" by CKY, which at that point I couldn't even do it at all. Like I had trouble just playing the couple power chords that are like in the chorus of that song, let alone like the relatively difficult main riff in that song. But yeah, that's the first song I tried playing. And then, I don't know, like you would think that I would have tried starting off with like simpler, like punk songs, but I went right into like metal. Like I immediately was trying to play Yngwie Malmsteen stuff.
Oh my God.
Like, just immediately, like, because that's the stuff I was getting into. I was getting into like more technical music, and I loved like all like the 80s shred guys, like the Shrapnel Records guys, like, Malmsteen, Greg Howe, Tony McAlpine, especially, which, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous in hindsight that that's basically my entry point into guitar playing.
Well, now it's okay. So I got to dig into that a little bit. So are we talking like you're just listening to this stuff and trying to play it by ear, or were we looking up tabs, or do you actually read like note for note?
So I was looking up tabs and stuff, and shortly after that, I started taking lessons with a guy who, totally grew up on all that 80s shred, 80s metal. So it was like a breath of fresh air to have a young kid who was interested in that stuff, at that time, 2004, 2005, 2006, kind of like the more like technical guitar boom,
Yeah. So tabs. And so did you ever get to the point where you're writing music, or are you reading music, or are you, and I preface that not as a condescending question, because I cannot read music at all.
I can read music a little bit, but it's not like I'm gonna sit down and like sight read some complicated piece of music,
Right.
But if I look at some sheet music, I can be like, this is E, this is A, this is that, I'd have to like really think about it though.
Yeah, I got you. Well, that's cool. So how successful do you feel that you were as far as emulating that style?
I think I caught on relatively well pretty fast.
That's awesome.
Relatively speaking. I mean, the thing was, like, I wanted to be a good guitarist, It's like, I didn't want to just play guitar. I wanted to be really good at it.
Do you, so I would assume that Circleback is not the first band that you played in. So what was your first band like, or if it wasn't Circleback?
So I've only played in 2 bands, including Circleback. My first band was a band called Centura. We were like a thrashy death metal band. And
that's cool.
Yeah, we came out with like an EP that is like absolutely embarrassing, and I don't want anyone to ever hear it. But then we did a second EP, which I actually am pretty proud of. But we only lasted for like a few years.
Well, that's not bad, actually. Well, most bands that I was in at a younger age lasted about a matter of months. So
yeah, see, I never experienced that really. I mean, so a couple of the guys that were in that band, Centura, we tried jamming prior to forming that band, and like that didn't really work out. But we were never really a band, We just kind of jammed a few times, and I was like, this isn't working.
That's a familiar story for sure.
Yeah.
How did you end up getting in touch with John and Circleback?
So me and John had followed each other on Twitter for a while, and I listened to Circleback. Like I was aware of the music, but I was always like, who are these guys? Like I've never seen these guys. Like where are they from? What is going on? But one day John just randomly messaged me on Twitter, and he asked if I would be interested in playing guitar in Circleback, because he wanted to make Circleback a live band. And I was like super stoked, because at that point, like Centura didn't exist anymore. So I had nothing going on. And then John, sent me that message, and I was like, okay, I'm down.
That's cool. Yeah, because I believe it was just almost just like a project of his.
Like a studio band.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. It's all kind of coming together. I'm still trying to put some of those. So like John, I knew from an old band that he was in called Outcry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I knew, his friend Danny, who was, Danny, I think Danny was nice. Outcry. See, I'm already like my brain's.
Yeah, he was an Outcry.
Yeah, he was an Outcry, and then so like I'm trying to put like there's this whole scene in a different state that I did not grow up in that I've been trying to piece together all this time and find out how all the dots connect.
Yeah.
So it was a studio project. So he asked you to come in and play. Did you guys just start playing out like immediately? Because it seems like for a while, like every day on my Facebook feed, there would be live pictures of you guys playing somewhere. So it almost seemed like you guys were like a 3-day-a-week band,
So it actually took us a while to lock down a drummer at the very beginning. But once we did, we like immediately tried playing shows.
Yeah. Tried and failed, or.
I mean, we played some shows, and then it was like, okay, now let me put it this way: we've had a lot of lineup changes. For a band that hasn't done like a whole lot, we've had a lot of lineup changes.
The struggle is real. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Well, finding a drummer is almost always the hardest part, I've found, because like every dude you ever meet is a vocalist, right? And then like every dude, and like you can find a bass player anywhere, and if you can't find a bass player, you can convince a guitar player to play bass.
Yeah. But a failed guitar player.
I didn't say that, but your words, not mine. But yes, that's exactly what I mean. And there's so many dudes just sitting in their basements shredding guitar, so that makes sense. Whenever you guys put out Terminus, what was that process like for you as far as getting that record down? These are all questions I did not ask John. I saved them for you. So
with Terminus, it was kind of the first time we had like a very stable lineup, which is the lineup we have now. And so that was the first album where like I wrote the music to, and well, no, that's not true. Actually, the album before that, I wrote the music for. But with that album, I kind of struggled with how Circleback should sound. Like it was kind of like me trying to imitate what like Dan and the previous guitarist Cutler was trying to do with Circleback, and I don't know, it just wasn't how I played naturally. But with Terminus, I kind of like got into the mentality of I'm just going to do what is natural to me, which is essentially like me dumbing down death metal riffs and trying to turn them into metallic hardcore.
Right.
Basically.
Was there any kind of like yeah, and that was something I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something. So you're telling me about all these like guitar virtuosos that you were, emulating, early on, and you're listening to death metal and stuff, and then then you join this hardcore band, which I would imagine would be like not as complicated or not necessarily as challenging. But then when you listen to Terminus, it's pretty much exactly like what you're describing. Like, it seems, especially compared to like the EPs before Terminus, it's like way metaled up on Terminus.
That mean, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, a good bit of the riffs I wrote, so I guess that's probably where that comes from. Like the tremolo, the couple tremolo picking parts that we got, that's definitely me.
Yeah, it's cool too, because it has that like older hardcore, not old, I don't say like old, like outdated, but like it's like what metallic hardcore bands sounded like back when I first started listening to it, before everybody was just playing like At the Gates riffs, and stuff like that. So no, that's cool. So, and then you guys put out Terminus, you put it out on like what, vinyl, cassette, CD. I don't remember. Yeah, there was a CD release too. 8-track. I think. No, I made that one up. But
No.
man, it's gonna play. Actually, it probably would fit on an 8-track pretty well. So you guys went out. So I guess this is always the big elephant in the room. What plans did you guys have before like we all had to go inside and like not talk to anybody anymore?
I mean, we write music, record music, play some shows, and we're doing all of that except the play shows part. Yeah,
hard to do that whenever there's nowhere to play.
Yeah, I know, right?
But so you guys have just recently, I don't know if it's just recently or not, I'm just going off of Facebook posts, but you guys are writing new material for potentially a new album, or?
We have a whole EP written, and we're going to the studio in October to record it.
Sweet. So Are we expecting like kind of in the same vein as Terminus, or are you going to start like throwing in like 15-minute guitar solos?
There's no solos. Definitely in the vein of Terminus, maybe heavier. I know that's like a cliche thing to say, but I think it's heavier.
Yeah, I think you described it as, what did you say? I can't find. I'm not going to dig through Facebook posts to find it, but there was something that, it was all hype though. So I got really excited too, because I feel like Terminus came out like 8 minutes ago. So like I really dig it. But so I mean that's exciting. And are you guys always planning on doing your stuff independent, or are you guys looking at like labels or anything like that?
We would love to have a label be interested in us.
Let me pull up my list of label owners right now. And
yeah, please.
Unfortunately, the best I could do would be like find a guy that puts out 25 album limited releases, something like that. And you guys still have to pay for everything. Yeah, that seems to be what the definition of label is now. But I have come to be aware over time that music, while being a very, very big passion of yours, the other thing that I see you post about every other day is Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy.
So I knew I had to bring it up because, I have never seen anybody this like as into it. And so my question is, are you like, do you like the entire series, or are you focused in on just like one or two of the games?
I like the majority of the series. It's hilarious because like I would not call myself a gamer at all nowadays. Yeah. Like pretty much once I got a car at like the age of 17, I stopped playing video games. Like I'm so behind on games.
Oh, that's
but
funny.
Yeah, I've always loved Final Fantasy. And I beat Final Fantasy VII Remake like a week after it was released. It's like the one like modern game I've played. in like 10 years.
That's cool. Do you think that it compared to the original?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna have to take your word.
I don't want to spoil it or anything. I
No,
don't know if you played it, but
I haven't. But I mean,
it adds a lot. It
Okay.
adds a lot to the old game.
Okay. No, that's cool. No, I don't. Well, unfortunately, I probably won't get to play it until like a PS4 costs like $50 or something, and is like really outdated. But at least by that time, all three of them will have been released. But yeah, I'm a PC player mostly. So I definitely hone. I think my favorite Final Fantasy game is probably, and this is controversial, but probably 13.
What?
Yeah,
wow,
dude.
that is controversial.
It's very controversial, I know. And like, here's the thing.
I checked out when 13 came out.
Here's the thing about 13 is I totally understand the criticisms and I totally agree with them, but I found that game to be a really great game to just zone out to. Because like I listen to so many records, like every week I'm like listening to records constantly to do for the show and sometimes for enjoyment. But in order for me to really focus in, I just like how linear and not like complicated that game is.
Yeah.
So I could just put it on and play and grind and listen to records. So like I've got characters that are like completely maxed out, like in every possible conceivable way. Just because like grinding in that game is relaxing. And I agree. It's probably doesn't have the glitz factor that some of the other games have, but you know, I don't know. 13 ended up being my favorite. It ended up being on top. It's got the most hours played, I think, out of all of them for me.
Wow, that's crazy. I just found that game to be so boring. Like the story seemed really cool, but God, I couldn't play it. I played it for like a couple hours and I was like, I can't do this. This is insanely boring to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
What is your second favorite Final Fantasy game?
Okay, you're like, how about one that you'll actually want to talk about? I would say probably. This is hard. I really liked 9 a lot.
Okay, yeah, same.
And because nine was cool, it was like a good mixture of like the old Final Fantasy games, and but also like in the newer style, like 7 and 8. So I'm gonna flip it on you and say, what is your least favorite Final Fantasy game that's not 13?
No, definitely 10-2. That's easy to answer.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, that was. It was like they came out with that game, and then everything after that was terrible until 15.
That's fair. I haven't played 15. But, it's still sitting on my hard drive installed.
Oh, really?
So I haven't played it.
I haven't played much of it, but the little bit that I did play, it was really awesome, and I need to restart that game and give it a real chance.
Yeah, totally. I've started it like, and I always get past like the opening, like this is how you fight, like the tutorial, and then I end up turning it off. I don't know why. I'm like, this is gonna be a really great game to play later on. You know? Yeah. It's been like what, 4 years?
Yeah, right.
No, that's cool. Do you play other? Or I know you say you're not really much of a gamer much anymore, but did you play other RPGs outside of the realm of Final Fantasy?
Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana. What else? That's basically it.
Yeah, dude, Chrono Trigger I love.
Yeah, that incredible game.
It was always hard to pick between that or like whenever it was just me and the Super Nintendo sitting there looking at each other. It was like, do I play Chrono Trigger or do I play Final Fantasy 3? I really don't know.
And by 3 you mean 6, right?
Yeah.
The actual,
3.
Yeah. Okay.
American 3, actual 6. Yes.
Yes. Awesome. That's one of the best ones.
Yeah, absolutely. But Yeah. So cool. So we've got new Circleback in the works. And there was something else I was going to ask you, and I can't remember what it was now because I'm blanking and I've been at work all day. But you went and played guitar for another band. Was it last year? I'm trying to remember what band that was.
So you're probably talking about I filled in for a few shows in Shame Spiral.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that just you guys were like good friends, or what was that?
They were looking for just a fill-in bassist, and they kind of put out a post online, and then I was like, yo, I'm down.
Yeah.
And the main guy in the band, Bailey, was like, you're the best dude, or like you have the most chops out of everybody who's asked. So, and he just sent me like him playing all of their songs on bass, and was like, just learn these. I was just kind of like, all right.
Sounds good. Did they play? Were they just playing shows, or were they on tour or something?
So those few shows that I filled in for, it was supposed to be a short little run with Sworn Enemy. It was supposed to be like 5 days.
Oh, cool.
But the thing is, Sworn Enemy actually didn't play any of the shows because they got into like a car accident or something. They like hit a deer.
Oh no.
Yeah, so they didn't play any of those shows. I was super, super stoked to play with them for obvious reasons. And it was in Canada, but it didn't even happen. I mean, Sworn Enemy didn't play, but we played all the shows.
Right. So it was still awesome.
So it was cool. It was just a bummer that Sworn Enemy didn't play. I was like, what?
Right. Another thing that you do that I don't know if people listening to this are aware of, but you've more recently got into like doing videos and like playthroughs and stuff. What made you want to do that?
I just wanted to do music outside of Circleback. I just want to do stuff,
Sure.
And, a big thing is I want to like show people that, I can play more than just like hardcore, like I can play more technical stuff, kind of like just a way to show off my chops a little bit, outside of the band.
Well, no, and it's cool too, because I mean, there's a lot of people that have made like a full career out of just literally making guitar videos. Yeah,
it's insane.
Well, Nathan, thanks so much, man, for coming out. Didn't really come out. I called you, but thanks for taking the time out to chat for a little bit tonight about some video games and like I'm not a guitarist, so like I always really enjoy hearing kind of the perspective on some of these things from a guitarist, because like talking to vocalists, it's great. Like I'm a vocalist myself, but it's always so like big and sweeping and epic, and I like some of the kind of more cold hard stuff. So, but I really appreciate it, man. I'm super stoked about the new EP, and we are going to link. Is it cool if we link to your YouTube channel?
Absolutely, please.
Awesome. So, if you want to see dude throw some chops down real hard, he absolutely can do that. So, really appreciate it, man, and we'll catch up with you later, especially if we do that CKY episode.
Oh yes, please, let's.